views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Well, coming up on this edition of Perspectives, over 3,000 miles away and almost 3 years later, the Brexit debate in the United Kingdom is a common topic during the news cycle here in America. But we mainly hear of how it would affect trade and overall relations between the EU and UK. But on this edition of Perspectives, you hear a different perspective. What about the poor? Are the architects of the Brexit deal motivated by racist and nationalist views? What about the churches? Is the Brexit debate dividing the church in the UK? I have this discussion next on this edition of Perspectives with yours truly, Daren Jaime.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
Express what's on your mind. What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective with shines of light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life.
Make a difference.
What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective?
Let 'em know. And hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Perspectives. I am Daren Jaime, and of course, we thank you for watching. You can join us here on Perspectives every week on BronxNet's Channel 67. If you have Verizon Files, that would be Channel 33, or check us out on the web. You're also invited to check us out on all our social media platforms, particularly my professional page, Daren C. Jaime, on Facebook. You could also be able to get some inspiration and words of a different sort. Well, coming up on this edition of Perspectives, Christians and especially black churches are watching the Brexit deal closely. But some, especially in England, are saying that the church has gone silent or doesn't have a voice at all. But they'll be drastically affected by the conclusions. So to discuss this, I'm joined by the senior minister of Ransom African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church in London, England. He presently serves as director of the National Christian Leaders Forum, which is considered the voice of the black church in the UK. He's also a director of the Pentecostal Credit Union, one of the largest black-owned financial institutions. And with 41 years in Christian ministry, he's held leadership positions in Kenya, Trinidad, Tobago, St. Vincent, and the United Kingdom. He's from the United Kingdom right now, and he's here with us right here in the borough of the Bronx, and we're pleased to be joined by Senior Pastor Ronald A. Nathan. Thank you so much.
Hey, Brother Jaime.
How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good to have you.
Yeah.
So, representing England.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. England is rather cold at the moment, although it's heating up in the parliament.
Right.
Yeah, we've got an election coming up in December the 12th because of the whole Brexit discussions. But it's good to be here in town, in the Bronx, in the hood.
We're glad to have you with
Yeah.
us. Let me go, before we talk about Brexit, let's talk about the United States for a minute, right?
All right.
I want to ask you a question about how are we perceived in England, given the fact of our president, the actions that's being taken. What's the perception of America and our president over in the UK?
Well, I think it's fair to say that the perspective is not a very high one. The country of the UK is divided on Mr. Trump and on the US particular state at the moment, but the majority of people are really disappointed at the kind of profile that the US is projecting at the moment. It seems to want to come out of all the arrangements it has made with the various nations. It wants to go it alone on its foreign policy, and it's disappointing a lot of people.
Yeah. And so, as far as the president himself, what do they think?
He's person non grata in certain areas of the United Kingdom. Certainly the parliament not at this point ready to receive him. The perception is that he's on his own agenda, and therefore the special relationship that normally exists between the United States of America and the United Kingdom is a chilly one.
I remember being over in the UK recently, and as a matter of fact, it was around the time I think I saw you, and a lady stopped me at the hotel, and she said she could not understand about African Americans being murdered, unarmed African Americans being murdered, and the police, and it's something that really does not happen in the UK.
I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that. We have our issues as well. We have something called stop and search,
Okay.
which
Was
is
our stop and frisk, right?
yeah, and that is predominantly exercised within black communities. Okay, the perception is that black kids have more access to drugs, to guns, and so there's heavy policing in many black areas. And so that has a measure of hostility within our communities. But beyond that, there is gun and knife crime that is being prevalent within our, within the country, and within black and white communities. But again, the profile is primarily black kids doing this,
Right.
you know, which is not really the case.
We'll get into Brexit for a minute and talk about Brexit and the black church. But for someone who may not be so familiar with Brexit and what that deal is really all about, can you give us a little background?
Well, if you think of being in a family of nations for about 40 plus years, Brexit is Britain exiting the family, Brexit. And literally, that's what Britain has decided to do. 3 years ago, it had a referendum on the 23rd of June, 2016. And from that, it decided it wanted to come out. And the arguments were, there were two sides, one wanting to remain, one wanting to leave. And the arguments for leaving is, we'll be in charge of our own ship. We'll be able to do our own thing without this, in quotes, big brother over us, allowing certain laws and enforcing certain laws upon us. And therefore, Brexit really is about Britain extricating itself from the family of European nations. Now, that seems to be a simple, straightforward thing, but as we have seen over the last 3 years, it has not been so, because the referendum itself was almost an even split, 52% saying leave, 48% saying we want to stay.
Right.
And so it split the whole country. Families are split, churches are split, and it has created a major instability within that nation. Now, one of the questions that is not asked by many in the black church in particular is, what is behind this move? And from where I sit, what is behind that move is a desire for the old empire. And Britain has long moved away from that.
Right.
It does not have the clout politically or militarily or economically to sustain that kind of empire status.
I got about 2 minutes before we go to break, but what's the old empire, if you will? How do you define that?
The old empire really was all those Commonwealth nations, the countries that Britain governed overseas, including Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, Australia, and New Zealand was part of the arrangement, and several other countries around the world. So they were under the British Crown. Okay, but as independence came to many of the islands, the empire began to shrink. There actually was a saying that the sun never set on the empire. Okay, there are some people who say that's because God couldn't trust them in the dark. But that's another thing.
Wow. All right, listen, I'm going to take a quick break. Pastor Ronald A. Nathan is joining us here from all the way from London, England, talking about Brexit. How does Brexit actually affect the black church in England? That's going to be the topic of conversation when we return right here on Perspectives.
Well, Thomas, you've got prediabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have prediabetes. Big time.
Continue our conversation with Senior Pastor Ronald A. Nathan from the Ransom African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church in London, England. Our guest talking a little bit about the UK, giving us what's going on. And when we talk about Brexit again, the Black Church, UK, how is it actually affecting the Christian population?
Well, I think first we have to understand that when we speak about the Black Church, it's not the same configuration as in the United States of America. The Black Church in the UK is approximately about 4,000 plus churches and somewhere in the region of 350,000 followers. Now, with that, you have a number of Black Christians who are also represented in what is called the historical churches, what is equivalent to the Episcopal Church, the Catholic Church, and others. So given that, you already have a pretty diverse community. But the Black Church has historically in the UK represented the Black community, which finds itself in the lower echelons of the economic order. And that means they are most vulnerable to any changes in an economy. And therefore, the church has to speak up. And maybe we have not spoken up enough, but we have to speak on these issues and to really advise and guide our community on how to respond to this major shift in political and economic policies.
Right. What are we missing? I mean, obviously in the United States, we don't get the opportunity to, I mean, we get the BBC, right? You know, we get to see what goes on, but the BBC is also limited. So there's a lot of things that we really don't know. What is it about England, the UK, that we should be paying attention to that maybe we're not?
Okay. First, we have to understand that the social services, which acts as a buffer for the poor so that they don't fall directly into abject poverty, that is shrinking. So therefore, access to hospitals, access to social care for the senior citizens, access for children who may be vulnerable, all those services are shrinking.
Sounds like the United States.
Yes, very much like the United States at the moment. So those are shrinking. And with that, you are having this debate which says, we will withdraw from the European Union, which had very high standards of social care. Therefore, this frees Britain to be able to establish whatever new standards it wants. Okay? And so that's a cause for concern. But also, the economy, our folks work primarily in the services sector. And the services sector is reducing because of Brexit, even the debate. Actually, the the strength of the pound has dropped by about 20% since the referendum. So therefore, you have a situation in which we have less money in our pockets, less access to crucial services, and greater vulnerability. As you walk through the streets of London now, you're seeing homeless people sleeping on the streets in front of stores, things that was
Never before.
never before,
Wow.
or at least not for 40, 50 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you look at your economy, how do you feel about it?
Well, it's certainly weak and it's getting weaker. And if we come out without an arrangement with the European Union, the impact is even greater. Because right at this moment, I have senior citizens who say to me, we cannot get the medication we used to get. And that's because most of the medication comes from Europe.
Wow. So let's talk about the church itself. The conversation about Brexit. You know, when this whole issue happens, a lot of people were on different sides. Families were divided against each other. How does it work in the church? Is the church very much divided on this?
Well, the sad thing is that many black churches or many black ministers said absolutely nothing in the run-up to the referendum. Okay, because there are still some of our churches that believe that politics is not the responsibility of the church, and the church ought not to be involved in politics. Okay, and therefore, when I got to the church that I'm pastoring now, which was just after the Brexit referendum, I asked the question, what was the position of the church in regard to this subject? And there was no position. And therefore I said, so what did you do? Hold discussion groups, get involved? No, Pastor, we didn't do anything like that.
Wow.
So therefore, I have members of my church who voted for, and I have members who voted against, and I have a large contingency who didn't vote at all. Okay, so that is still the situation, that there are some who are for. I'm pleased to say that our church is much more aware now, because apart from preaching on the subject, and some folks weren't happy about that, Pastor, really we ought to be talking about the Bible. I said, this is the Bible.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, you know, to preach to the poor.
So you got a little flack about that.
Yeah, we do.
So National Christian Leaders Forum, I know you're very connected there. Explain a little bit about your group.
Well, that's the church is trying to get a single voice as it speaks to the public and to government institutions. For a long time, the government would say, well, we don't know who to speak to in the black church. Okay, and so they do now. Okay, and that forum, as a matter of fact, have done a sterling piece of work in producing the first black political manifesto for the church. Okay, and so that's up, and as a matter of fact, as we speak, is being revised for the December 12 elections. So that forum helps to make sure that we have a presence in major national debates.
We'll take a quick break. When I come back, I want to talk to you about voter turnout, right? Because that's a big problem for us here. And I'll explain, and you let me know how things are working in the UK. Okay. Be right back in a moment.
Did you know kids who play outdoors have healthier lungs?
Totally.
I did. Did you know that boys that play with dolls make better husbands?
My son has lots of dolls.
But did you know terracloth diapers breathe better?
I did.
It's totally true.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that strollers have the right of way on the sidewalk?
Yes.
Yep, I did. Did you guys
Did you know that kids who eat breakfast have higher GPAs?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That's actually what I was going to say.
Did you know babies should never touch silver? It's really bad for them.
I knew that.
Did you guys know that statistically friendly kids have more friends?
Yeah.
That's obvious.
Did you know most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat to make sure your child is protected.
I'm putting that on my blog.
I just put it in mine.
maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made this vacation happen.
Double points with every purchase?
Cleverly merging promotions.
Love it.
Cross-referencing travel sites. And booking all your flights with those...
Vouchers. I got us bumped.
They were like, oh. But now they're like... Aloha. You aced this vacation. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
Back to Your Perspectives. Ooh, all right, we're back. All right, a little cough here. But I want to let you know, listen, we're talking about the UK, talking about the United States, talking about similarities, differences, contrasts. Reverend Ronald Nathan, senior pastor of the Ransom Amy Zion Church in London, England, joins us here in studio. And when we talk about voter turnout, right? The United States, last presidential election, 53% of registered American voters didn't turn out to vote. What do you see over there?
Well, I think that this is an international issue where voters are distrusting the political processes and therefore are discouraged either because they believe it makes no difference if I vote or it will be the same old. Yeah, and so we have the same challenge of falling voter turnout. However, it's important to say that there are some issues that bring people out. And one of those is the matter of immigration. In the UK, behind the whole Brexit debate has been a major lobby by certain people to want to limit immigration and even reverse immigration. Hence the whole Windrush scandal that we had in the UK where people from the Caribbean who had gone to the UK some 40, 50 years ago were now being told that you need to leave. Yeah. So there are issues that can bring people to the voting booth, but it's a major turnoff, especially when they see our politicians behaving very irresponsible.
Yeah. When you say that, I'll look back and think, when you watch CNN, you see what we go through, Fox News, anything, you can see how intense it is. And we watch Parliament too. It's pretty intense over there.
Yes. And we've had a lot of shouting in the last few months.
Pushing.
And pushing, yes.
Now, we don't see that here.
And threats. And threats to our MPs. You know, MPs on both sides. And there was a survey done or a poll done recently where the majority of people are saying that they believe that violence could be used against MPs who voted opposite to them. You know, wow.
Yeah.
That's a change. But I believe that what is needed, especially within the Black Christian community, is for us to explain the issues to a point where they can understand and appreciate the value of voting, and then we need to facilitate our people getting to the polling booths.
I got 2 minutes, but tell me a little bit about the Pentecostal Credit Union.
Oh, well, that is Britain's largest black financial institution. It was started 40 years ago by the Reverend Carmel Jones, and it's growing from strength to strength. It had its ups and downs, but we are looking at it as a major vehicle for economic development of the black community in the UK.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's exciting to be sitting on the board, and we have some bright young people pushing us, telling us some of the new directions we need to go, you know, digitalizing all of our works and so forth, and administration. So it's really exciting, and it's at a time when it's most needed because we need to finance our entrepreneurs, we need to finance our churches with new building projects, but we're also asking the churches to expand their vision to take in things like schools and hospitals and so forth, and they would need financing.
Pastor Ron Nathan, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us.
God bless you, sir.
Come on back, okay?
Will do.
And maybe we have to set up some Skype or something on our other show, Open. Give us a little insight as to what's going on over there.
Sure. Look forward to that.
All right, Pastor Ron Nathan, our guest, senior pastor of the Ransom African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church in London, England. That about wraps up for us here on Perspectives. As always, we invite you to stay connected to us. And listen, share your perspective. It just might make a difference in someone else's life. I'm Daren Jaime saying take care and God bless.
Don't forget to share your perspective which shines a light, because it might make a difference in someone else's life. What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective?
Let them know.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
Express what's on your mind.
And I can't change, even if I tried, even if I wanted to. My love, she keeps me warm. 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 She keeps me warm.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with Dachshund reading.
No.
Let me try. Sarah's bright, but when she's reading, she has trouble sounding out words.
Playing world music.
What?
I give up.
Wait, I was trying to show you how Sarah feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your child thrive.